iris. There's a group of iris native to the whole Near East, from Israel, Syria, Iraq, Turkey, Afghanistan, all the way up to Afghanistan. And they're very hard to grow. And they're called oncos or aryl iris because they have a little collar on their seed. Aryl means collar in Greek. So they've bred them with the tall bearded, which are the kinds of typical ones you see all over the place. And so it's taken years and years to get this done because the chromosomes didn't match up. So, but they've managed to get these beautiful hybrids, and they do well in the desert. So I used to be president of that society. There's an Aryl Society International when I was a little kid. Friends of my grandparents raised iris, and one of them was the founder and president of the Aryl Society International, and he got me started hybridizing iris. And when I moved to Lancaster, they grew very well, but when I moved back to Hollywood, they didn't grow very well. So I sort of gave up on them. But then when I ended up with this place in Newberry, I decided to try it, and they're doing very well in spite of all the wind and the heat and so forth. They tend to go dormant in the summer, so they don't mind it being hot because they just go to sleep. Take a siesta. All right, now there's a little bit of fake advertising here. I said we do color and number symbolism. I doubt very much we're going to get to number symbolism. I have so much information on color symbolism that we will probably have to stick with that instead. So I'll start with a little chant. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Adavamai Tejasvinavati Jamaski Avimishavai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman protect us, may he guide us, and give us strength and right understanding. May love and harmony be with us all. Oh, peace, peace, peace. And Happy New Year to all of those who might be celebrating that. There are so many different provinces of India that there are many different dates for New Year's, but several of them land on, they landed last Saturday or Sunday, I can't remember which. And so, I think it was Saturday. It was
29.
Yeah. So, and it's interesting that it kind of has a similar idea of other celebrations at this time of year, like Easter, because it's, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, it's very natural for us to feel this kind of surge or resurgence of energy in the spring, because that's when things tend to come back to life again. And so a lot of it has to do with renewal and resurrection and starting afresh and new beginnings and cycles and so forth. And so it's often celebrated with a variety of colors, just as we have a lot of colorful flowers and things coming into bloom. And so that's the symbolism of the New Year's in many of these cultures. It's also a time of planting and so forth. So lots of celebrations around food and flowers and so forth. So the spiritual and symbolic meaning of colors is extremely varied, but there are a few commonalities across cultures and across the ages. So we're going to be looking at both the commonalities and the varieties in the meanings of colors. They're a powerful reminder of things for us, and so it's good for us to kind of understand them. And when if you were into the mandalas section last month, you might look back at your mandalas and see what colors predominated, and that can be a psychological tool to what you're going through at the moment. So psychologists will use colors as one way of intuiting what's going on with a client if they're having a client doing mandalas. You also tend to have favorite colors, and we tend to paint rooms different colors. Advertisers and business people have known the impact of color for a long time, and so they also use color in order to get certain responses from people. For example, restaurants will often use several different colors that are a little bit jarring so that you won't spend too much time lingering afterwards and they can serve somebody else. Things like that. It's been shown that the sports team that wears red tends to win more often than the ones that wear other colors, because red can be a little intimidating to the other team and a little energizing to the person wearing them. So all of these different things impact us. It's also nice, I think, and this was going to apply to number symbolism as well, is that since we're surrounded by colors and numbers all the time, and we're always trying to remember God, it's nice to connect the two so that when we see a particular color, we're reminded of a particular spiritual quality and perhaps a particular deity. So some people like to think of colors as either warm or cool. And of course, warm colors tend to mean a feeling of kind of coziness or snugness. It can be the reds, the oranges, and the yellows tend to be the warm colors. The cool colors might be more associated with soothingness and calmness and relaxation and that sort of thing. Now, colors can also have negative connotations. I'm not going to dwell a whole lot on negative connotations. I want to emphasize the positive ones so that we're reminded of the positive ideas as we see different colors. But the colors in your choices in mandalas, as well as the way you decorate your living space or the way you dress or the kinds of flowers you pick and so forth, are indicative or reflections of our internal emotional states and our interests and our desires, and can sometimes be a reflection of those states or a reflection of the desires in the directions we'd like to go. So it can take on either one of those colors. Colors can have many layers of meaning, each layer telling us a little bit different. And colors don't always mean the same thing to all people, because we have sometimes associations with colors that other people might not have. Different cultures might have associations with colors that we might not have. And of course, we also know that people that live in different environments have different ideas about colors. People that live deep into a forest, for example, will have many interpretations of the color green and not so many for other colors. And people that live in an icy environment will have many different names for ice and types of white that we might not necessarily feel we even need. So let's start with the most general colors, white and black, and see what kind of ideas that sparks. And we can have a little audience participation here. So what does white mean to you, or what does it invoke to you? What do you feel when you're surrounded by white? Or why would you choose to be in a white environment, say, or why would you choose to wear white? Would you like to start?
It's open and embracing. It's inviting to me.
Yeah, it's very open, isn't it? Yeah.
Clean, maybe even divine.
Yes, yeah. It's very much associated with divine purity, you could say. Yeah. And light. We think of light is, the sun is yellow, but it comes to us as white light, basically, which is a combination of all the colors, which of course we didn't know for a long time, but now we know that white light splits into a whole rainbow of colors. So white is all inclusive, as you say, all embracing and all inclusive. And it's used in a lot of creation stories because of that. It's because of it's kind of like the Bindu was in our mandalas. It's the center point of creation where it expands from the white light into the diversity. And so it's used in a lot of metaphors, like in the Bible, of course, it says, "Let there be light." And Jesus said, "I'm the light of the world," indicating that, the beacon of light showing the way. So the sacredness of light is in really across all traditions, because it does suggest purity, timelessness, and a sense of spiritual expansion, you could say. And fairy tales might use that as well, using it as a metaphor for the boundary between the world that we live in and the spiritual world that we're trying to embrace. So, for example, when Alice falls down the rabbit hole, it's the white rabbit that leads her down into this journey that is going to open her consciousness to the fact that this world is really just a dream. And there are many myths and fairy tales that have white unicorns and white horses, white birds, like white doves, as messengers of some sort of spirituality. Snow White was as white as snow, and of course the metaphor there is that she loses her consciousness and then has to regain it by becoming more whole. This is kind of the symbolism of that particular fairy tale. And then black. Black can often, sometimes, we think of opposites, so we think of black as being something negative. And in Westerns, the good guys would always wear white hats, and the bad guys would always wear black hats. But it can also mean other things. In fact, it has a great formalness to it. If you go to a formal affair, people are dressed in black and white. I remember we did we performed Kiss Me Kate in my high school, and they had these two ballroom scenes, and the mother of the lead made all the costumes, and in one of them she did them all in black and white, and it's just absolutely stunning. And then the last one was all in color. Everybody was wearing a different beautiful colored ball gown. And so black and white can also be extremely vivid and formal and beautiful in a sense. Also, just as white light is all the colors of light, black is all the colors of the pigments. If you put all the pigments together, you get black. So in a sense, opposites are identical, just like we often discover that if you go around and find opposites, they actually meet at the other end. So those are the various things about black and white. Now, if we look at the spectrum, if we go from the highest vibration down, we would start with violet. Now, many people think of purple as violet, but there are actually technical differences. Purple is thought of as a man-made color, combining pigments of blue and red, whereas violet is the pure wavelength of light that comes at the highest end of the visible spectrum. But to the naked eye, we often can't distinguish between the two. They often look very similar. But be that as it may, we can look at the spiritual symbolism of violet and then also look at purple. Well, violet is associated with what? What does it bring to mind? Anybody?
Violets.
That's straightforward.
Right.
The violet flowers. And what do we sometimes associate violets with?
Easter.
Easter, yeah. How about shrinking violets?
Oh,
Can be a
okay.
little timid maybe, or a little in the background maybe, or not wanting to be right out front, which a lot of spiritual ideas tend to be. Our spiritual ideas tend to be a little bit more hidden and not quite as open in the material world, and not quite as obvious.
Divine
Anything else?
communication.
Hmm?
Divine communication.
Divine communication, yeah. The violet flame of spiritual knowledge and so forth, sometimes used in that sense. It's often a symbol of healing and integration of the body, mind, and spirit. Since it's coming through the crown chakra, it's the purest form of a colored energy, which then represents the fullness of Brahman, you could say, the fullness of the oneness coming through. And so it carries that idea of great wisdom and perception, great spiritual perception. Now, purple, on the other hand, is usually associated with what?
Religion.
Yeah, a certain aspect of religion.
Royalty.
Royalty, yeah, that's probably the most common thing. And it's kind of interesting as to how it got that connotation. Purple was a very expensive dye, and so only the royal people could afford it. So it got associated with them. So there's an example of a color association that is fairly cultural specific, probably to European cultures. But we've also found it in India too. We often associate these spiritual avatars like Krishna and Rama, Swami Atmavidyannanda, with the deep purples and deep blues, associated with the peacock of Sri Krishna, with the beautiful blue hues of the peacock as well. So we're kind of getting down into the blue range, but still kind of at the purple end of the blue range. It's also kind of associated with magic. I think sometimes wizards would wear purple robes and so forth. And purple is worn by the bishops, right? So it's a sign of kind of spiritual authority in the Christian church. And one commentator said that purple is aspiring to the red of the cardinal. So who knows? Sometimes I think this is somewhat stretched, but anyway, again, all of these things help to remind us of certain things. So as we get down further, we'll talk about blue and red, and then we can talk about purple being a blending of blue and red energies. So we'll hold off until we get down to that particular time. Now, it's also associated with the color of certain wines, and so in Greek symbolism, it was often associated with the god of wine, Dionysus, which also had to do, interestingly enough, as the season would have it, or renewal and regeneration. So Dionysus was considered the god of death and resurrection. And so this idea of associating purple with that was also kind of associated. And it's also a color you use for Easter for the same reason, that it symbolizes this regeneration of life. Now, as we go down the spectrum, blue, what is blue? What do you associate blue with? What does it remind you of? What is it? How does it make you feel? Any of those things?
Water.
Yeah, water
Sky.
and
Sky.
and sky, which is why the water is blue. Water really doesn't have a color, but it looks blue. It reflects the blue of the sky. Yeah.
Krishna.
And Krishna makes you think of Krishna.
Communication.
Communication, you know. Any particular emotional feeling? Yeah, it tends to be kind of calming, doesn't it? And as we mentioned earlier, it's kind of a cooling color. You you want a room that feels cool, you're probably not going to paint it red or yellow. Those are pretty warm colors. And so you might choose blue instead. Or, now, of course, blue, all of these colors come in a huge variety, from baby blue, which is more like what you see in the sky, to deep blue, which you might see at the very tail end of twilight, where the sky, the reds of the sunset have disappeared, but there's a deep, deep blue before the sky turns completely black. My mother used to call it her blue period. She loved the color of the sky at that time. So because it reminds us of both sky and water reminds us of oceans, what do you suppose we associate blue with? Skies and oceans tend to be what in our sense?
Vast.
Vast, yeah, vast, huge, almost infinite in scope, and so imaginably large that it seems to be infinite. And indeed, even early people associated blue with distant mysteries, things that were in the realm of the gods or the spirits or the ancestors. And so blue became associated with religious feelings and mysterious nature of the religious feelings. In Tibetan mandalas, blue symbolizes a spiritual condition in which the whirlwind movement of passion has been transcended, and only the clear, motionless brilliance of consciousness remains. And in the Cherokee Indian tradition, blue is the color of the sacred fire of pure intention, which each person must bring to fullness within. So, of course, we often think of flames and fire as being yellow or orange or red, but indeed, the hottest part of the flame is blue. And so the Native Americans in the Cherokee tradition picked up on that idea of the blue flame being the most intense or the most pure of intentions. Now, what religious figure in Christianity do we usually, or at least frequently, see dressed in blue?
The Virgin Mother.
The Virgin Mary. Yes, she's frequently associated with blue. And so with that association, it also tends to take on a feeling of motherhood and nurturing. And some psychologists have speculated that that's perhaps because in the womb we are in like a sea of basically ocean-like water, a nice saline solution down there in the womb. And obviously we're not looking at it like we're looking at the ocean, but by the time you're born and then start looking at things, there might be some sort of intuitive, emotional response to that, and then that association gets made. Also because unlike the Cherokee, seeing the blueness of the flame as being the hottest, we tend to think of water as being blue, so it tends to feel like a cool color to us. But that is kind of ironic that in stars, it's the blue stars that are the hottest and the red stars that are the coolest. So sometimes these symbolisms can be a little mixed. Another interesting thing about blue then is, since it's associated with water, water is almost a universal solvent. And so it tends to symbolize transformation and chemical reactions or any kind of reaction. And so it dissolves things and transforms them. And of course, in The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy melts the Wicked Witch with water. So the water element cleanses and purifies and dissolves away all of these evil dualistic tendencies into a oneness. Everything gets mixed together in the water. It's not this substance and that substance anymore. You dump them in and they all get mixed together. And so even if they don't react, they're all mixed together. So water represents a dissolving and a mixing and a oneness and a homogeneousness to it. Of course, the Christian traditions use water for baptism, and that's, again, kind of a symbolic death and rebirth. When you get baptized, you're born into a new life, you could say. Blue can also symbolize the unconscious. Many Jungian psychologists associate blue with a deeper unconscious entity. And it's also associated, though, with the thinking function. Jung found that many, in his patients, many of the times that they would come up with blue in their mandala, it represented their thinking function. And of course, he had the idea of the 4 personality types and the different spectrums, the different dualities. And one of those was the thinking function. And so he found that the ones that predominated in that function tended to have more blue in their mandalas. All right, as we mentioned, the deep blue might feel more like the beginning of the night sky. Some people associate it with storminess or chaos. And so sometimes the deeper blue can have a more negative connotation, but yeah, I think it also can mean a deepening of intuition and a deepening of inner calm, so that you can see to the depths of your soul. Perhaps like the dark night of the soul coming on and allowing you to transmute some of the dualities. Now, as we mentioned, blues come in many colors, and as you get towards the green, we often think of it as turquoise. It's interesting that in the many cultures, the gemstone turquoise is associated with healing and protection and balance and communication. So people will wear turquoise jewelry in order to bring about healing and protection for them and balancing out their energies. It can also symbolize the protection against energies and represents the connection between sky and water. Often those take on more of an aquamarine hue, you could say. And it does seem to have a very calming kind of influence on us. So anybody else have any insights into turquoise? Anybody ever go up to some of the Native American places like near Sedona and look at all of the different ornaments they have? Yeah. Anybody have any turquoise?
I have a large one that's on a ring from an Indian reservation.
Yeah.
I think they said it had healing qualities,
Yes.
but I don't really like to wear jewelry.
Yeah. You just don't need healing, you see.
I need the healing, I don't like to wear jewelry.
So again, just like blue, it tends to bring about a rather calming effect and tranquil effect. In some of those cultures, it symbolized a bridge that connected ancient wisdom to our current situation, to our here and now. So it represented discovering resilience and harmony and the unity, and a remembrance that we're not on the path alone, that the path of our spiritual path and our healing path are not necessarily lonely paths. There are other people on the path that can perhaps help us on the way if we need it. So then next down the list, of course, would be green. And the color green, of course, is associated with
Plants.
pardon?
Plants.
Plants, yeah. What did you say? Somebody said something else.
Earth
Same
energy, healing.
Earth energy, yeah. And anything else? We just had a holiday.
Oh, yeah, the same
Same
country.
Green
Ireland.
covers.
Ireland.
People that have been there, has anybody been to Ireland?
I have, yes.
Yeah, did you find the green was just
Everywhere.
in a more intense green than you find anywhere?
Yes,
It's
yes.
just something different about it. It's
Something
just,
different about it
Yeah.
there, yes, I
Yeah.
totally, and every shade, like
Yeah.
if you just look across the land, even, you can see every shade of green
yeah,
blending in together, it's beautiful.
we miss that here in,
Yes.
in the Southwest. Yeah, but I went to the East Coast. That struck me as how much greener the East Coast was. All the trees and all the, I mean, and even in the summer, it's still green because they get rain all year long. And out here, we're green for 3 months and that's it. And it all turns brown. So it's connected with nature, the earth, plants, growth, and it's the middle of the spectrum. So it's halfway between the highest vibrations of light energy and the lowest vibrations of light energy that we can perceive. So, how does it make you feel?
Happy.
Yeah, it tends to be kind of a happy color, doesn't it? Yeah, and a lot of people find that it brings about clarity and a certain kind of good energy, not a hyped up energy, but a nice good energy. And I don't know if you remember, but when I was going to school, most of the classrooms were painted green and they switched from blackboards to green boards.
That's true, I remember
That's
that.
why they did it. That's why they did it, because it had a more calming but still energizing effect on the students. And that's what you want. You want them to be attentive, but not hyper. And so you paint the walls green and you use a green board. So these are the kinds of things that are enhanced with green. What did I do with my notes here? I lost it. Green. Here we go. They're out of order. Said the judge, you're out of order. All right, so being in the middle of the spectrum, we tend to associate it with the heart chakra. And so when we do chakra meditations, we usually are visualizing a beautiful green energy in that. In some cultures, especially the US and the UK, it's considered lucky. And of course, that's also associated with four-leaf clovers and St. Patrick's Day and things like that, with the nice green color. And Native American medicine wheels associated it with the South. Has anybody ever been in a medicine wheel? Yeah, they're fun, aren't they? They're nice. They're a nice experience. I'm hoping to have one in Newbury someday. My chiropractor does them, so I'm gonna invite her out. She's gonna turn 84, I think, this year.
Wow.
And she's gonna be in a senior walkathon, marathon, I think it's a 10K or something. But anyway, remarkable lady. So, so the South, what does the South represent? The South exemplifies innocence of being close to nature, trusting and knowing one's own heart. So there you get the heart chakra. The animal associated with the South is the mouse, which of course is also associated as the vehicle for Ganesha. And it's the same symbolism. It's a creature with keen discrimination, someone that can get into small spaces and figure things out. So it's the wisdom of the South is the capacity to cherish loved ones in a natural and accepting way. Mythologically, we could say that green is a combination of yellow and blue is often thought of as a mother energy and yellow is thought of as as a father energy. So it's the kind of a family energy, you could say, a combination of the mother and the father, showing the nurturing quality of a holistic family. And so we want to nurture ourselves, so we want to cultivate that nurturing of ourselves with green energy. So it's also thought of as a good healing energy. Now, one psychologist suggested that when you see green in a character, such as the Green Knight in Sir Gawain in the English tale, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, that it stands for a novice, one who is aspiring to greater achievements. So it would be also applicable to a student who is embracing the path of enlightenment. And as we've mentioned in the sound bath, it's the junction between the three lower chakras where most of us tend to spend most of our time just functioning in the world, trying to get along, holding our jobs down, keeping the families going and getting through life. And the upper three chakras, which we're aspiring to in our meditation practice and our spiritual practice, which is opening to the higher energies of awareness. So green symbolizes that junction. It also is common in animals and creatures, both real and mythological, associated with the water. And so it's pulling in from that, that blue energy from the water, but it's becoming manifest more in an earthly way as creatures. So these also tend to be often somewhat free-spirited, you could say. And so there's also an element of someone who is a little bit outside of the norm, kind of like Robin Hood and his merry men, all dressed in green, or some sort of jolly green giant, or
Shrek.
So usually of a good quality, but not necessarily seen as good by the establishment. So I remember when I was a kid, the Thunderbird company came out with a color for their cars, the anti-establishment green.
Nice.
It's kind of trying to tap into the hippie crowd, I guess. All right, so it's these creatures in green serve a higher authority, you could say, the authority of nature. And as the margarine commercial of my generation was told, it's not nice to fool Mother Nature. Anybody remember that commercial?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So,
Mrs. Butterworth,
Was it a butter?
yeah, it was margarine that was trying to masquerade as butter.
That's
That's
right.
right,
Okay.
oh, that's right, margarine.
And of course now, I remember going to a nutritionist who told us not to eat margarine because it wasn't good for you, that butter was much better for you. And it turns out to be true.
Right.
Butter tends to be much better for you than margarine. In fact, the medium chain triglycerides that are in coconut oil that they suspect might be very good for brain function and preventing Alzheimer's and so forth. Coconut is by far the biggest source, but the next best source is butter. Butter is the next best source.
Well, they did the same thing with copper cookware. They
Yeah.
took all that, gave us aluminum.
Aluminum, yeah, right.
This is better.
So, the Jungian psychologists have found that in mandalas of their patients, it's often found in the helping professions, the professions that are geared towards helping other people. So things like teaching and nursing and doctoring and so forth, emergency response and all that kind of thing. So we can think of green as Mother Nature herself in some sense, personified, the mother energy personified in green. All right, then Yellow, yellow. Boy, these are out of order. That'd be yellow. You wonder where the yellow managed to impress
Follow the yellow brick road.
you. Do you see the power of advertising?
Follow the yellow brick road.
All right. Yellow, spiritual meaning of yellow. Spiritual is symbolic of empowerment. And what does it remind you of?
Spiritual.
Joy, yeah. Several happy colors.
Energy.
Energy,
Sunshine.
sunshine, and that's probably why it means energy, because we're getting energy from the sun. The whole universe basically is running on sunlight, which runs on nuclear energy, but we don't have a sense organ for nuclear energy, so we tend to associate all energy, the ultimate source of energy, coming from stars, which our sun is a very average, fortunately, a very average example. The difficulty is, if we were a planet around a very hot star, it would burn out in a much shorter time. It wouldn't last even 1 billion years, much less 10 billion years. And so the probability of intelligent life evolving is much more slim. And if it's a very cool star, if it's a red star, a red dwarf star, you have to be so close to it that you'd be in a lot more cosmic radiation. And so there's that problem. So really, we're very fortunate that we're in sort of the Goldilocks zone of stars, not too hot, not too cold. And it shines with a beautiful yellow color. And so it's the color of the third chakra, which is often called the solar plexus. And it's a symbol for the intellect, confidence, empowerment. She said energy. And since it comes from the sun, it tends to be a symbol of warmth and light giving. So often, of course, solar worship was probably the earliest kind of worship that we have in different religious traditions. And so worshiping the sun and honoring yellow color would have been very significant. In the Cherokee tradition, the yellow is associated with the fire of wisdom. So fire gets a lot of colors symbolized with it. Yellow is also the color of the medicine wheel direction, the east. And the teaching of the east is said to be illumination. With the wisdom of the east, one can see things clearly, far and wide. And of course, the sun rises in the east, and so we associate the rising of illumination, which is inner illumination as well, with the east direction. Jungian psychologists have also found that people use yellow a lot in their mandalas when they have a greater ability to grasp meaning and collect scattered thoughts and impressions into some sort of a whole, a greater understanding. So it's identified as the intuitive function in the Jungian personality complex. And its close relative, gold, is often associated again with a higher state of illumination and also royalty, because again, it's expensive. And so it's associated with leadership and the roles of the ruling class, you could say. So it emphasizes positive energy and clarity and a promotion of self-confidence and spiritual courage. So if we think of the yellow as a golden light, it should increase our sense of security and self-confidence. Then orange is associated, again, it's between yellow and red, so it has many of the qualities of both yellow and red, and so it's associated again with energy, flames, warmth, also sensuality and affection, sexual energy, and of course it's associated with that particular chakra, the second chakra. It's also associated with the fall, since a lot of things turn, a lot of leaves turn orange, and so forth. But it's also associated with many fruits. Many fruits are in that color. We have not only the fall fruits of pumpkins and winter squash and so forth, but a lot of other fruits, some of which, of course, ripen in the fall as well as during the summer. But peaches and apricots and oranges, and of course, we get oranges all year round too. There are different varieties of oranges that you can get all year around. And of course, we wear a version of orange in order to symbolize the fire of renunciation. So again, there's one of the components of a flame is orange, and it represents that fire of renunciation. So let's move on down. Let's see. Oh, yeah, orange can suggest a one step removed from kind of raw energy. You get on one side the yellow with a brilliant sun, which is too brilliant to look at directly, and the raw red energy of the chakra below it. And so orange kind of suggests a way of approaching those energies with less intensity and a greater ability to approach them. So you could think of orange as red energy invested with a bit of the father yellow energy, or you could think of it as again a combination of the masculine and feminine, the masculine yellow and the feminine red energy. And so again, it can have a feeling of teamwork, family, communication with others, and being able to express your own power, but also be using it with others, not just being selfish or dictatorial. So it's a nice kind of harmonizing color in that sense. It's interesting though, when they do surveys, orange is not a particularly popular color. So it's interesting that they discovered that. You know, there are actually groups of people that sit around and decide what color is going to be popular the next year. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
they do.
Yeah,
I want that job.
Green is
I
back
choose
in.
pink.
yeah. And so you go into the store one year and everything's lavenders, purples, and pinks, and the next year they're all oranges and browns, and the next year they're all blues and turquoises. And they
Then it
want you
starts
to,
all over again.
yeah, they want you to throw
Every
out,
decade,
they want
right
you to
back
throw
there.
out your old wardrobe and buy all new clothes. And the guy that told me this actually did that. He would literally take his entire wardrobe, donate it, and buy all new clothes. I can't fathom that.
Wow.
I don't understand that mindset. But anyway, he was an artist and he was tapped into all this stuff about art and color and so forth. All right, so red down to the bottom here. Red, of course, is associated with mother energy, raw energy, coming up from Mother Earth. It's the color of the root chakra. It's associated with the sort of the origins of life, you could say. How about ideas from you? What do you think of when you think of red?
Restaurants. Restaurants always use red.
Blood is red.
Blood,
Sports.
Like lava.
Sports, high energy.
Yeah, high energy
Fire.
sports, Red Bull. Call it that for a reason. Yeah, and the red color of the Toreador's gate.
Like creation.
But,
like
yeah.
Coming out of like lava, like
Yeah.
creating.
Yeah, red lava creates land, and yeah, blood is one of the most frequent associations. And so red tends to, again, be the sign of life. I mean, red is kind of our, the life-giving blood. We can't do without the blood. And so when they do brain scans on people, when they're looking at different colors, they find that it tends to be very arousing, and that people tend to notice red. That's why stop signs are red, because you notice them more. They don't have to let you know when it's time to go. You can go when you feel like it, but when it's time to stop, you have to stop. And so they make the stop signs red. Yeah, if you want to warn somebody of something, you put something red out there, a red flag that warns you. So red can have both of those kinds of symbolisms, kind of a warning, danger, as well as nurturing mother energy, red. And so it also, since the heart, we think of the heart as associated with blood, it can represent a loving energy. But usually that loving energy tends to get more into the pinks. The pink energy tends to be what Valentine's Day and so forth. You might wrap things in pink paper and pink bows and things like that. So all of these things are somewhat fluid. In the Tibetan mandalas, the red symbolizes a ring of fire, which again is a ring of protection. We do that in the puja. We put a ring of fire around to protect us from negative influences. And so again, fire gets practically every color you can think of. All the hot colors, red, orange, and yellow. In the Cherokee teachings, it's red symbolizes walking the path of wisdom and to be able to articulate and live in a sacred manner. So let's go on to pink, which is basically light red. Pink symbolizes romance, tenderness, femininity. It was only in the recent decades have men been bold enough to wear pink. For a man to wear pink, you've got to be bold, because pinky and blue boy, girls wore pink, guys wore browns and blues. So fortunately, we're getting out of those stereotypes, and people can wear whatever color they feel like. So the pink tends to be the one that is associated with these kinds of passion. One person said it's oozing with positivity, warmth, and comfort. And so some establishments will color their walls pink in order to be very inviting. The candy shops will often be pink. There was a health food store. There's still one health food store in this chain called Lindbergh Nutrition. When I was a kid, there were, I think, 3 of them. And her motto was "in the pink." And that's an expression for being in good health. I guess it means that you're not pale to the point of anemia or something. Works in our culture, wouldn't work in Africa, but in the pink would certainly work for most Western people. If you're in good health, you have a sort of a pinkishness about you. And so we also have expressions like tickled pink, meaning that you're just delighted about something. So pink is a very happy energy, very playful energy. I'm not very good. I don't have much time left. So I think we need to go on to specific things with Hinduism and deities and so forth. It's interesting. I thought this was kind of common knowledge, but when I go to USC, none of them seem to be hooked into color symbolism for flowers. They just put any color flower on any deity. Doesn't seem to matter. The Hollywood Center anyway, and I think probably most of our centers, we associate different colors with different aspects of the divine. And so when it's Krishna Puja or Swami Atmavidyanda's Puja, whom we associate with a companion of Lord Krishna, we emphasize the blues and the purples. And Swami Brahmananda was said to have the energy of a king, that he could rule a kingdom, Sri Ramakrishna said. And of course, he became the first president of the order. And so we associate the purples and the blues with Swami Brahmananda. And then if it's Shivaratri, we often will use a combination of black sky, because it's a night ceremony with twinkling white stars, white for the color of ashes that he would smear on his body, and also white symbolizing a sense of purity and peace. So the ice lingam in Armanat is, of course, white and is associated with Lord Shiva. And so we tend to offer white flowers to him. And of course, white shows up beautifully against black backgrounds. So the combination there, again, is quite stunning. Lakshmi Puja, we associate her with red and gold, or red and yellows. Red because she's a mother deity, and gold because she's the goddess of wealth and sustenance and support. And so we tend to worship her with red and gold flowers. Aspects of Vishnu tend to like yellow. So Rama and Krishna, we associate with, we tend to offer yellow flowers too. But of course, Krishna and Rama were both blue-skinned, and so we also associate them with colors of blue. But so you can have more than one color for a deity, and they have different aspects of symbolism for them. Saraswati is usually either white or yellow. Again, white signifying the sattva guna, or the most revealing guna, and that the arts and learning tend to reveal the nature of the reality behind this universe. And so she represents that. But she also, seems to like yellow. All right, so in general, in Hinduism, red signifies both sensuality and purity. It is the most significant color for auspicious occasions like marriages, births, and other big festivals. And a red mark put on the forehead during ceremonies and important occasions is a sign of this. So it symbolizes Shakti, or the mother energy. It's also a favorite color for Lord Ganesha. Lord Ganesha likes red flowers, especially red hibiscus. That's a whole other topic of symbolism, is what flowers they like especially. But of course, here we don't have access to every possible flower they have in India, so we have to kind of use what we've got. A saffron color is sacred as a representation of fire, and as we mentioned before, fire represents burning impurities, sending messages to the heavens. We make sacrificial fires and put offerings into the fire as a way of symbolically allowing those messages to rise up into the heavens, because we tend to think of the gods being up there, even though we also think of them in here. But the most common way of thinking of things that are higher and superior in spiritual things, we think of them as up there, which of course in space has no meaning. There is no up or down in space. The Australians would have their up and down completely different from ours. So it's all relative. So it represents a certain level of purity and abstinence. Green is, again, a festive color. It represents life and happiness and peace and prosperity, a certain stability to the mind. It tends to be a cool color, like its neighbor blue. And as you say, like in Ireland, if you go to a green pasture or a green forest, it tends to be cool. If you, even out here, if you walk under a tree it's a lot cooler because the tree is transpiring moisture and providing shade. And so we think of green as being a cool color, and it represents Mother Nature. Yellow is a symbol of knowledge and learning. So there again, that's why Saraswati would want yellow. Sri Ramakrishna is said to have liked yellow, and so yellow was often offered to him. But white is often offered to the guru and the ishta. So we offer white flowers of purity, representing that level of purity and cleanness and ultimate knowledge is symbolized by white. And so we offer that to the guru or the ishta. And we think of Ramakrishna as embodying all gods and goddesses, so you can think of him as embodying all colors. And so he also likes white. But Holy Mother said that he favored yellow, so either color is fine. Blue. You could think that blue is probably the most predominant color in nature, since 70% of the earth is covered with water, which we perceive as blue, and then every time you look up, unless it's cloudy, you see blue. So we see a lot of water and sky, and they're all blue. So the blue in Hinduism, has the qualities of bravery and determination, and that's of course manifested in the incarnations of Krishna and Rama, who had to be very brave and courageous and determined in their efforts, and ability to deal with difficult situations. Both of them were renowned in destroying demons of various sorts. Both of them spent their lives protecting humanity from evil, and again, personified by different evil aspects or demon aspects. So that's the symbolism behind all of these different colors in Hinduism. And so when we see these colors, we can remind ourselves of the various deity that are associated with it, and with the various emotional impact that it has. And so if you're deciding what to wear or what to color your rooms, if you need some energy, you might think of yellow or red. If you need to be calm and peaceful, you might think of blues or greens. If you need to be on a high spiritual level, you might think of whites or violets. So no matter what your situation is, there's a color that can help you along the way. And there are some interesting studies, and I'm out of time, but I'm going to just mention a couple of these. We mentioned how sports teams wearing red tend to perform better. However, they also tested people's ability on cognitive tests, and they found if they used a red color on the test booklet, they performed worse. And they think that's because it represented danger, stop, don't go here. Okay, so you get the red book that you're supposed to answer all these questions, and suddenly you're like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. So it kind of spoils your motivation. Now that's the effect on the other team. If you're wearing red, you get the energy of the red, and the other team gets stop, danger, don't go there. These people are bad. Okay, so depends on your point of view. They found that stores and companies that use blue logos tend to be trusted more than companies that have other kinds of colors. Participants ate fewer chocolate chip cookies when it was served on a red plate than when it was on a blue or a white plate. Yeah, those are some of the interesting ones. But anyway, so that's just a kind of a sampling of the kinds of research that goes on. And of course, there's a whole other area of healing too, color healing. some therapists will use colored lights to enhance certain energies. And if a person's blessed with being able to see someone's aura, they might see what color is missing or not as intense as it should be. And so they might be able to enhance that with some sort of color therapy. Gemstone therapy goes along the same lines. The energy of a gemstone is related to its color, and wearing that gemstone would then enhance that particular energy for you. And there's a whole study of that, and people will often recommend those kinds of things. They often tend to go along with astrologers. After an astrological reading, if it shows that you have perhaps a particular planet that's not in a very good aspect and maybe causing problems, and you want to modify that, then the gemist will recommend that you wear a particular kind of stone in a particular color in order to modify that energy and so forth. So there are all these different theories about color that go on. All right, so I'll close with a chant, and then you can offer a flower and we'll enjoy some salad. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamidachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamidivashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Filled with firmament the things we see, filled with firmament the things we see not. From out of Brahman floweth all that is. From Brahman all, yet is it still the same. Oh, peace, peace, peace.
Okay. And we have Kalima here, just so fortuitously. Swami. And everybody gets another shot. Oh, okay, I guess that was it. Sorry. What was here?
Swamiji, even Shivji is, we got Shivji Neelkant.
Oh, yes, yes, he's
Blue.
associated with blue too,
Yeah.
yes.
Kalima in that
And
piece.
because he drank poison, that's why it turned blue. But
Yeah,
the poison
yeah.
for Krishna is different.
Yeah.
It
Everybody gets it.
symbolizes
Yeah, I meant to mention that.
It's Vita's birthday also
Okay, I'll-
today, by the way.
Oh, you
Okay.
She's coming back. She's going to get pizza apparently. I didn't know that. Have some flowers and she'll come back and we'll celebrate Swami and
Okay,
Vita's birthday. Just careful.
Like a wish of flower. If she's going to
Anybody else in Aries that we need to celebrate?
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming online. Jai Ma.